I take it I don't need a mic for y'all to hear me anyway, right? I guess you're wondering why I'm up here. Mr. Rodney's trying to recover from his surgery. For those visiting, we are glad to have you this morning. For those watching, you're always our honored guest to participate in our service. We are in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 6, if you'll turn there. That is the scope of our study this morning. Ask you would to please continue to remember the Dryden family in our prayers, and Randy and his sisters in our prayers, and especially Rodney. Rodney did send me a text and then said, "You got plenty to cover, keep on track." So I'll do my best. As you know, it's always dangerous to give me this microphone, right? I mean, I want you to always encourage these young guys. I can't put that emphasis on that enough. To me, I've never been afraid of getting up and talking. It's being quiet is the harder part for me, but to give them the motivation to get up here and not be scared regardless of what happens. I was told by a high school teacher, he said, when you get up to speak, don't be afraid, because whether it goes good or bad, it builds you into the confidence that you can focus yourself on what you're thinking about. And first of all, I am not a teacher. I'm in a classroom of people that are a lot better than me, a lot smarter, and a lot older and more experienced than me. I'm a presenter. So that's what we're going to do this morning, present this topic of Jesus. I would focus on this to give you, if you want to look at this at the end of class, this is a really good book by Ed Gallagher, one of the professors at Heritage, about this particular subject. It's totally on the subject of the Sermon on the Mount and what we can gather deeper studies in it. So I will leave that, and if you want to see me after church, I can tell you about that. I want to read you, before we get into Matthew chapter 6, Matthew chapter 17, verses 3 through 5, the scenario is at the Transfiguration. And it says, "And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, talking with him. And then Peter answered and said to Jesus, Lord, is it good for us to be here? If you wish, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. And while he was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. And suddenly a voice came out of the cloud saying, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. With emphasis, hear him." So the thought on any of the words in the Gospels about Jesus, I remember reading an article back a few years ago, is the words in red more important than the other words of the Bible? In one emphasis, no, but in one emphasis, yes. Because God is telling us he put Jesus on this earth, incarnate as a human, to give us the only way we can get back to God. We have to go through Jesus. Jesus said himself, there's no way back to the Father but through me. So emphasis is we do have to watch these words in red. And my emphasis in the last few months is really studying the Gospels and just going back over. As strange as it seems, and I know I've said this before, growing up in the church and getting wherever I've been through the course of in and out of the church when my youth, it always seemed strange to me while I knew the sermons of Jesus and knew lessons and sermons about Jesus in the Gospels, I never could really grasp my mind about who is Jesus Christ? Who is this individual that is our Redeemer, our Master? And when you get into the Gospels, that's the only way you're going to get to the heart of who the Lord is. Even though Paul's writings and all the Bible from the beginning to the end is all encompassed and it's all going to be completed in due time, the Gospels are our most important means of how to learn to be like Jesus. Now, Rodney covered chapter 5 last week, and the emphasis in verses 21 through 30 was the heart is the motive of all of our intentions. The murder and adultery are both, Jesus said, are all dwelled in the heart. This thing about hypocrisy we're getting in chapter 6 is a continuation of that theme of thought. Your intent of your heart, whether you deceive others and hide it, now he's getting into the part of hypocrisy, of doing things to be showy. Verses 1 through 4 is talking about giving. Then he gets into praying in 7 through 15. And then he goes into that same topic in verse 16 through 18. Now the author here, if I forgot to mention it, The Life of Christ Volume 1 is where this is taken, pages 240 through 255. And I just went through there and copied out some of the notes that Rodney gave me. He says, we do like to be praised, do we not? Everybody likes praise, don't we? We don't like condemnation, even though I sometimes need it. And sometimes Anna Grace has got back, I get it. But had to throw that dig in there. It wasn't 15 minutes, and it was like old times, you know. But that's great. She's sweet. But the fact that we do like compliments. He says here, if our bosses give us a compliment, it improves our work performance. And he makes a statement, if our mate gives us a compliment, everything's better, right? Compliments build. And in relationships, I think that's the most important thing. I see to me at this age, at 58, that the most important thing we can do is to build each other up. Build each other up. Encouragement for a Christian walk, not to get bewildered. Sometimes I've looked back, I grew up in the church in a time when it was nothing to hear emphasis on hell and the consequences of disobeying God. And I'm not saying that's not a balanced approach, but it's more encouraging to people. If you want to be with God forever, emphasize that, push that to the front, and then as a sub-warning, if you refuse God's warnings and not to obey Him, then this will be the consequence of your actions. So it's a balance and unbalance. And to me, I don't know, I love both. I love the thought of being encouraged to do the best I can do, and then you got to watch your heart. You got to watch your heart. And that's the whole intent of all of Jesus teaching His disciples and those following Him, especially those He would send out to the other people, the apostles. Change the way you live. If you go into, well, have I misprinted this? Yes, I have. No, I haven't. Y'all have to see that I have to blow it up big. I can't see even with bifocals anymore. It's over. Verse 1 through 4. Would somebody like to read that for me?
Take heed that you do not do your charitable deeds for men, to be seen by them. Otherwise you have no reward from your Father in heaven. Therefore, when you do charitable deeds, do not sound the trumpet before you as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory from men. Surely I say to you, they have their reward. But when you do a charitable deed, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, that your charitable deed may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will Himself reward you openly.
Thank you, Denny. There's more to doing this than being done in secret. It's as if that is the main point, that their hypocrisy for the religious leaders were they wanted everybody to know they were doing this. They wanted everybody to know I'm giving this. Now, the question is, how is it a contrast to, say, doing something in an open deed? What if we're in somewhere and someone's in a need of something? You're just anywhere. To say the scenario, someone's out and you know someone's stranded, they may be traveling, you're out and you see they're in need, and we do a good deed to them, whether they need money or whatever. Is it wrong in that case to do it publicly? Or I think what this emphasis is, they were doing it to be showboat. They were doing it to focus, look at me, look what I've done, look at my righteousness. It wasn't the righteousness of our motives from the heart, as Jesus said in the 5th chapter. Your heart will display where your motive is. It's nothing wrong to do it publicly. It's something we're commanded to do frequently. If you see need, this is the emphasis. If you see need to help in the means that you can. Now, sometimes we don't always have the means, but if you do it in the right motive, God accepts it. And it will always be acceptable to God. But do y'all have any thoughts on that? And it's the motive of everything behind our giving. If we give it begrudgingly, what does it mean? If we give because we love people, want to do, I mean, you get in a situation where sometimes it's hard to know when to do it and when not to do it. How we go about doing it, how to give and how to not be seen, with emphasis in don't let this be your, do it quickly and get it and do it in the right heart and manner of how you're trying to give to people. I don't really know exactly how to close that thought, but they just evidently had a bad problem with that, being showboating. And this whole emphasis about the heart and the matter of way they done things, Jesus is trying to say, you don't be like this. You do not do like this. We live in a society when you think in America with people, we have an abundance, a land of plenty, but there's still people in need. There's always going to be people in need. I was thinking this last week, we have so much abundance, even as a common working class people, that we can't even relate to. We're rich beyond rich compared to the world. I see people in the other cultures, and I've been lucky, blessed in a way to see some of the Chinese and Oriental people's culture. Been working around them the last few years. They do as they're told. They don't have freedoms we have. They don't have the abundance we have. I remember I was sitting there one time. One of the guys was sitting there. We was working on a machine. I said, "Here, just keep that too. I got some more." And he was shocked. Like that was a prize to him. And I'm thinking, that's just a hand tool. It's nothing, really. And I thought, I really felt bad after I got there. I thinking, that's bad. I have everything, and then these people have nothing. And any charitable, and it wasn't to be showy. I'm not telling you to say, look at me. I'm saying we have so much that we sometimes overlook. We think that the other person in that situation has. Well, and then you get into this negative side of it. Well, if they would do better, if they would try better, if they'd go the further step, if they would try, quote, as hard as I, if they'd work as hard as I, they would have. Do we realize that some people don't have that means? Some people, you take a child or a kid coming up in an impoverished home, maybe a broken family, a broken home, and they don't have the means to get put in a situation to get them further along. It's our duty, I think, in my opinion, to do the best we can to motivate everybody and push them as further down the road as we can. That's my perspective. Any thoughts?
No, I don't know that you can hide a good heart. God is in control of all of that. But if our heart's not where it is and we try to show it, that's going to be obvious I think we'll see it. Look at me, attitude. You pick up on that pretty quick.
I think you're right, Danny. I think hypocrisy does show itself. But if your motives, I've known way too many, I won't bring it up, but there's way too many people I know that do things that people never know. And I'm privy to some, I've just been hearing it from my father and other people tell me about people in their day that done things don't say it.
God says give and it shall be given to you, the attitude.
Right.
The idea of free will help to others.
I've known a guy that they said he tried to give his money away and couldn't give it all away. It seemed as the more that he gave, the more God blessed. It's like he could not give it away. And I thought, I was thinking on the way to church this morning, I've had everything. In my youth, I had money. I had enough money I was living at home still and had a good job. Possessions they don't make me happy. I do have possessions, but if I lost it all, really, at this point, what does it matter? I do regret the fact I didn't know more Bible or didn't understand the urgency of that in my youth. That's the biggest regret. We get into verses 5 through 15 talking about the Lord's Prayer. Now, Rodney had a lesson on this, and I'm going to try to make sure I shove through this so I don't get to the end. The emphasis about prayer is Jesus is not telling you use this prayer. Keep your prayers simple. The public prayers, and I'm fixed to probably get myself in a spot here, but I'm too stupid not to know not to say it. That's correct, Barry. That's true. All right, let me give you the emphasis, and you just take it where it goes, and please, I'm not being smart alecky. Growing up in the church, it's always been emphasis, would ask someone to pray that was known to be a big, eloquent prayer leader. And I'm not against public prayer, don't believe me not, but it's required. But I think it's less to be so showy and be brief to the moment. Because the Lord was telling them the things that you won't let God, He doesn't know you need it. But don't do it to be showy. Your words and your gracious greetings and talking and eloquent speech is not doing nothing for God. It's not impressive to God. How are you going to impress the Creator of the universe? How are you going to create the Almighty? How are you going to impress Him with words we say? It's the motivation of the heart. What you say, what you know. He knows you need it. I think the most impressive prayers probably to God is our prayers on behalf of others, our prayers to ask God's petition for them, not for our own selfish wants. But that's just me. I mean, y'all got any thoughts on prayer? Prayer's it's just something that you daily do. I mean, it's something that you should often daily do. But you know, a lot of people don't get into that. A lot of people, and hey, I'm not knocking nobody about public prayer, believe you me. And I'm not even pushing the promotion that if you ain't you're a gentleman and a member of the church and you feel uncomfortable about any, I'm not pushing that agenda. I'm telling you, you do what you're comfortable with. I've told y'all, I've always pushed myself I try to push myself out of that comfort zone, whether I do good or not. But public prayer is hard for some people. It is very hard for people to get up and do it. I know people when growing up in the summertown, I knew I could probably go recite their prayer with you as soon as I got to the mic, because they were so nervous they had to memorize. They memorized certain cliche type things to say, and I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it should be from the heart. I've made train wrecks. Y'all see me anytime I get up, especially the announcements. We'll get that at the end of the thing. But you do know how that is. Don't be pretentious. The Lord doesn't want us to be pretentious. He sees through hypocrisy. He also sees through the darkened heart. Jesus gets on through this lesson here. He starts talking about fasting, and that's something evidently I know nothing about. But it's not required of us, but it was something in the Old Testament they did. I do see the health benefits probably of doing it to change your body's metabolism and maybe help with some illness, or sometimes you have to do that with surgeries. But Jesus tells them, don't be putting this showy face that I'm doing this. Look at me, I'm miserable, I'm doing it for God. He was warning them, your pretensions is not nothing to me. He tells them to clean yourself up, hold yourself face right, act cheerful, go about your thing. God acknowledges that whether it's required or not, Jesus was saying this, your motive of doing this is what's important. If you don't do it in the right concept, it doesn't matter at all. What good is it we do anything for the Lord if it's not with the right intents? We don't get nothing. And then he goes into verse 19 through 24. Somebody want to read that? 19 through 24. Thank you, Cynthia. Two things I would think here in this passage. The monetary, the things of worrying in their day and age. I mean, I look in the scenario, and I always tell you, I started looking at the Bible in a different way when I started thinking. I got to look in the culture of who's talking and what the scenario is. Their day and age, they didn't have the means of preserving food or doing other than salt and maybe some things like that. But it's always going to be the emphasis of people. There's people all around the world that's wondering what they're going to eat today. There's people wondering about their material needs and what they're going to have. And the fact that don't worry about this stuff. Don't get yourself worried about possessions and laying it up and hoarding it up. A lot of people hoard up a lot of things and have it. The thing that really caught me is in verse 22. The lamp of the body is the eye. In other words, how we perceive things. I see it from my perspective. The way we're looking at things, the evil eye. If you got an evil outlook on things, you're looking for the darkness, you're looking for the bad in things all the time. It's going to motivate you to start thinking that way and being that way. If you have evil thoughts and your intent of your heart is like murderous or adulterous, all of these things are inside of us. And we make the choice. We make the choice whether we ask God, you remove this from me, you help me purge out the bad, put in the good. It also comes in the way we look about life. If we push the bad out of us and quit worrying about possessions and live in a day-tight compartment. That's the one thing in my 20s when I had all this anxiety. I never learned to discipline myself, live in a day-tight compartment. And Jesus got into that. Worry about today. And we'll get into that here in a minute. But the part about these treasures and worrying about things, he just keeps escalating, building up to the climax at the end of this chapter of what's going on. In other words, Proverbs tells us a lot about how our lamp is a display of how we are inside. People know, as Denny said, people know how we are by the way we act. If you're a positive, bubbly person, people know, well, whether you're godly or not, more or less you're influenced to be a good person. There's a difference between totally godly and obeying God and being a good person. How many times you say, well, they're a good person? One question. Just because a person is good, will that mean they're saved? Without obedience to the Lord's commands, no salvation. And that sounds hardcore, and it sounds back to what I was telling them about. There's a part of motivation. We can get to the point of being good, but if I don't go the extra mile, what if the Lord asks us to do something that's totally hard for us? He told the apostles, they saying, oh, I can do it, we can follow you. Peter was braggart to going, I'll follow you even if I have to die. And then we know what happened. But the Lord told him, you will. He told all of them, you're going to taste the cup that I take. In other words, you're going to die. You're going to be martyred. We know that supposedly John was the only one that didn't. But all of us are going to have to pass that threshold. I can't emphasize enough, and it is the thing to check and balance yourself. An inward examination of yourself, even when you pray, is most crucial in everything. In a Christian life, to me, the problems I made was not of not wanting to learn and study, was not where am I at? Where am I at? Am I doing this to the right motivations? Then you can get so critical on yourself that you don't check that out. Now, your master in your heart. If God's in charge, as Denny alluded to, it will show that he's in charge, won't it? If you're living a godly life, it will show that he's in charge, right? And that's where sometimes we have to it really gets into this last part about the anxiety, and that's the point I thought when Rodney gave me, oh buddy, you give me the ace in the hole. You give me the one that I can lecture on this because I'm a poster child for it. And we get into this thought of the master in your heart. I want someone to read verses 25 through 34, and we're going to close out. And even if I finish early, I was determined that I want to get to this. Someone read that for me, 25 through 34.
Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air; they neither sow nor reap nor gather in the barn, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his lifespan? And why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? Therefore do not be anxious, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the Gentiles seek after these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them all. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Therefore do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble.
Thank you, Micah. I think if I'm not a tattoo person, even though me and Grace just talked about that, just a little side humor. If I was going to tattoo any Bible verse on me or on my forearm to remember me, beginning at 24, therefore I say to you, do not worry about your life. I believe that would just be the brand slogan on me. Quit worrying about things. And I don't know how many, I ain't going to ask you to show your hand, but I know I'm not the only one that has this demon sometimes. If it's the one thing that keeps me in check that I need God, I used to think it was a bad thing. But the more I've thought about it the last month, not a curse, but a blessing. Because the more it makes us in need of God each and every day, then the things that we think are so important will get put in the right perspective. It'll get put in check. It'll get put where it needs to be. Now, that doesn't mean that illness, worrying about our children, worrying about their safety. Even my children, I still worry about them driving. I guess I didn't think about that when I was driving. No wonder Mom's kept the lights on so late, worrying about us getting home. But the thought being, I don't know how you get over it. And I'm not telling you I've got the answers, but that's where I'm at in this point in life. To me, the Achilles heel, and as I told Rodney, work stress is the demon of all demons to me. And I don't know why. I just openly disclose that, but I've got to do my job, and I've got to make sure I'm going to be able to get it done and get it done timely, regardless whether I work production in my early years, whatever. It's just been that, just me. Now, I don't know if you put yourself in this situation, what is your worry? What are you worried about? You worried about having things. Let me put it in this situation. If it come and the Lord come right now, would all these worries be shelved? They're nothing compared to eternity. If we live our mind blocked into this point of time, that I'm doing what I can do today. Do the best you can do. And I tell myself, I'm just telling you, I'm going to repeat these things to myself. Do the best you can do. What you cannot control, let God control. If you need help, go ask others. I'm not bashful to ask for help. If I can't figure it out, I'll go grab one of the other guys. Just figure this out. We got a problem here. But what about anything in life? Do we feel so discouraged within the church that we can't go to someone else? I tell you, I'm not bashful. I'm going to go to ask you. If I think you can help me with my problem, I'm going to go ask you. A lot of you have come to me knowing that this is my issue. And you tell me, I got that too. I got that too. You tell me to quit worrying. Pat is one of the ones that, and I won't get on this a little bit so I maybe don't lose the thought of it. I was sitting here one Sunday, and I don't know, I was just keyed internally. I was just balled up for work the next week. And John Dryden came to me and said, it'll be okay. I thought, how would he even know? And I don't know that he knows. I just think he saw that there was something bothering me. But the issue with worry and stress and worrying about the things of this world will bottle you up till you can't even live a full life. How much better is it if we don't, what I can't control, I leave alone. I just got to leave it alone. Now, when I was thinking about that, the passage about where Paul kept saying that, so I wouldn't be so egotistical and so glorious and so into myself and my ego, God given me, Satan put a buffer against me to remind me of this. We don't know what his thorn in the flesh was. I don't know. I'm speculating. Some speculate maybe sight problems. I don't know. It don't matter. Whatever it was put in check for him. 3 times he asked the Lord, take this away from me. And when it's like a lightning bolt out of the sky, when I thought about that night, it just came out of me. That's the answer to sort of my problem. Regardless of the situation, he said, my grace is sufficient. If we truly believe that God cares for us, it should clip the worry. Will we get the answer we want? Let me ask you that. Will you get the answer you want when you pray? Always. What about health? What about disease? What about wealth? What about your job? What about the losing of a child? That's the hard questions. That's the things that the people that don't follow God are not Christians or people that rebutting the church and the Bible and all the things. The one issue between believing and not believing is this issue. I don't get what I want. God doesn't love me if I don't get what I want. It's one of the hardest things as a parent to discipline a kid. You don't always get what you want. Now, I'm pretty prone to give my kids what they want, especially Anna Grace, but I try to give them what they want. But sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is no. And I've learned to try to accept that. Some days it's going to be good, some days ain't. But any day we're alive and get the pleasure of, to me, being around other people is a pleasure, even though I sometimes have to be reclused. Just the day of enjoying a day, hearing a good song, maybe whatever, being outside on a pretty day, it's a pleasure just to be alive and have another day. And especially a day when you can help someone further down the line. Our Christian walk is not only in obedience to God, to living in a certain way, but to be so radiant that we pull people. What's the difference in this person? Why are they? What's different about this person? Let me ask you a question. Could you spot another, quote, I say a true Christian, should you be able to spot them? We should spot them from a mile away. They radiate God's glory. Our life is not our life. Our life was created to be the glory of God. Very beginning, we're servants. Jesus don't tell us to gloat and ask for, not that he ain't pleased with our service, but if we're wanting an attaboy, that's what we was created for. We're no different. We're created lower than the angels in the regard that we're in a different setting. When angels appeared to people in the Old Testament and people were frightened and sort of wanted to be bowing, they were rebuked. Do not bow to me. I'm a servant such as you. A different form of service, but in a different level. Unfortunately, the angels that rebelled against God, they saw God as God was. They had no way of, how can you repent? We're blessed in being humans in the fact that because we have not actually seen God, we see his works in all of creation, and we have the Holy Spirit's words. I often wonder why. How can you read the Bible and not believe? I have a hard time. How can you read the Bible and not believe it? I just can't. I don't have the mental capability of fathoming. How do you read the Scriptures and not believe it? And then again, I think, well, if I have so much problem with that, how, when I read the Scriptures, do I not act on what I don't know to be true? Why am I worried about anything? Why aren't we bottled up in our society? Who cares? Run the government off the rails for all I care. I'm not worried about it anymore. I'm done. Obey God. Nations come, they go. All through history. The Lord even told in the Old Testament, even the prophets, even talked about Daniel and all them, prophesying and prophesying about nations that would come and go. What nation and what government, what principal thing will never cease? The Lord's church will never cease. When he comes again, the church will be gathered to him. The devil will be given up from the grave. The righteous living will be called up to him. And the others, unfortunately, will not be such a good ending. But the church will never end. It's never going to cease. It will never go away. Now, the problem is, and we'll close with this thought because I have an issue with this particular thing when we're thinking about the global church and the thought. Throughout history, Anna Grace had a class on Reformation history. And she said, Dad, what do you know about that? Well, Anna Grace, I'm always reading and studying, but I can tell you who other than the enemy would want to perverse the sowing of the seed or to perverse the knowledge that we're given in the Holy Scriptures. Satan wants us to believe everybody's great. I don't like to get into that subject, but I don't worry about that no more. What do you think about this question? It's the last question. Can we read the Bible and all agree on it? Should we be able to agree in the universal church? Yes. Now, whether we do or don't, whether our bias or whether we were brought up in it, if we follow the pattern, can we obey God? Did God give us a pattern we could not follow? Absolutely. He gave us a pattern we can follow if we choose to. Anybody got any thoughts?
Noel, I was just thinking through this whole chapter, it all goes back to verse 2, where it says, "Truly I say to you, they have received their reward." And their reward is to be seen by men, and then they're going to be, then their treasures are laid up on earth, and it's therefore through this whole chapter.
Mike, I would have never thought of that.
Even though it's broke up into sections, this whole chapter is one, and then he comes to verse 25 and says, "Because of all these things, therefore, I tell you, don't be anxious about your life." So, yes, our prayers, we will get the answer that we want for our prayers if our treasures are laid up in heaven. Because that's what we're going to be concerned about, is the treasures in heaven. And so if we find ourselves constantly asking
Absolutely.
Just thought I had.
Thanks, sir. I would have go in a little bit further, but we'll leave it at that. I'll talk to you at the church. Rodney, love you, brother. Hope you're feeling good. Maybe I didn't bomb too bad on you.
Good morning. Welcome to the services of the Leoma Church of Christ. We are so happy to have you with us. For every visitor, we are happy that you are here with us. Invite you back every chance that you possibly have. This morning, as we enter into our worship, Pat Mashburn will be leading our singing. The opening prayer will be by Brett Thomas. John Waller will lead our thoughts around the communion. Bible reading will be by John Hooker. Josh Winters will be doing our closing prayer. And today, filling the pulpit will be David Killen, bringing us a lesson. We are excited about that as well. So please join with us in our worship as we begin. Due to the events of the recent week, my mind has been on a word called remembrance. There's a remembrance of Genesis chapter 9, verse 16. Noah was being told by God about the rainbow. And God said, I will look on it to remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature. In Genesis 19, verse 29, God is remembering his promise to Abraham, and he sent Lot out of the cities that he was going to destroy. In Luke chapter 17, verse 32, remembering this event, as was being taught, it said, remember Lot's wife, who had turned to look back at the cities that they were leaving, and she was told not to. Paul says to Timothy in the New Testament, I remember you in my prayers night and day. In Acts 10, verse 31, Cornelius heard this in a vision. And he heard, your prayer has been heard, and your alms are remembered in the sight of God. In Luke 22:19, as Jesus celebrates and initiates the Lord's Supper with his disciples, he says, this is my body, which is given for you. This do in remembrance of me. In Revelations 3:3 says, remember, therefore, how you have received and heard. Hold fast and repent. Therefore, if you will not watch, I will come up on you as a thief and you will not know what hour I will come upon you. Always remember God.
Page number 2. Page 2.
We praise thee, O God, for the Son of thy love, for Jesus who died and is now gone above. Hallelujah, thine the glory. Hallelujah, amen.
number 3.